So I want to welcome Karen Robertson, who is our very first guest on Write4Kids TV. Hooray for you, Karen. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be the inaugural guest. It's quite an honor.
Karen is talking to us, although you would never know it from her accent. She's speaking to us from Australia, right outside of Sydney?
Yes, that's right.
Great.
Yeah, I live in Sydney, Australia. I'm originally from Texas, though.
Okay. Great. And you are a children's author, and you are also the author of the book, the ebook, The Author's Guide to Book Apps. And it's just a fantastic resource. You know, it's such a new area, and there's so much kind of conflicting information out there. Authors are having trouble finding reliable information in non-technical terms, and I think your ebook just nails it. It's a terrific piece of work.
Oh, thanks, John. Look, it's the ebook I wish I would have had before I got started. Might be worthwhile just giving you a little bit of background why I even went into apps, because I am about as non-technical as you can get. In fact, when we were trying to set up this call, I was on the phone with my husband trying to work things out. But the thing that's so exciting about apps is, well, first of all, I'm really passionate about finding ways for kids to interact with reading. My sons are reluctant readers, which is why I created my first book, Treasure Time, The Lost Gold of Shark Island. It's an interactive treasure hunt adventure book, and it's got little toys in it that are clues to finding a gold treasure. So it's a different format. And because it's a different format, I self-published it. And I was in the position last year where I was about to reprint that book and print the next one in the series, publish the next one in the series. But I was looking at some really high upfront costs. And just as I was about to push the button to print everything, I saw a storybook app on the iPad for the first time. And I got so excited because I saw a new way for kids to interact with reading in a whole new level through touch, sound, and visual animation. And so I changed strategy at that moment, and I went digital, which is funny because I'm not technical, as I told you. But what I have found, I've learned a lot over the last 9 months since I got started, is that it's actually quite easy to turn your book into an app now, because there are companies popping up now that are helping children's authors turn their books into storybook apps. But you know, what's so exciting about this space is that the app market is just exploding, and the mobile device market is exploding. Maybe I should first tell people what an app actually is.
Sure, that would be great.
Yeah, that's probably the most common question I get is what's the difference between an app and an ebook? And really, I look at apps as an ebook on steroids. You know, a book app is really the best choice for an illustrated children's book. So an ebook is, you know, sold and used on many devices like e-readers and that sort of thing. But one of the challenges with e-readers is how good the quality is of, you know, showing illustrations and interactivity and that sort of thing. So what a book app is it's actually an illustrated children's book. Well, this is the way I'm talking about it. It's an illustrated children's book with a much higher level of interactivity with steroids. You've got things like text highlighting you can do, narration, animation, touch-based sound or automated sound. You can even integrate games into stories. It's a way to bring touch into stories. And a book app is an app, it's an ebook or an app that runs on a mobile device, like a tablet computer, like the iPad or the Galaxy, the Samsung Galaxy, or on a mobile phone, like an iPhone or an Android phone or that sort of thing. So, and the market is just exploding in growth. I mean, iPad, they were expecting to sell about 3 million in the first year, and they sold nearly 15 million in the first year. And now they've sold 25 million iPads. There's 25 million iPads in the market, and over 200 million iOS devices. So what an iOS device is, that's one of Apple's mobile devices. It's the iPad plus the iPhone and the iPod Touch. And I should say as well that I focus on the Apple products because that's what I chose to develop for. So when I talk about a number of things, it is very Apple-focused because I found that if I was going to develop for Android, I'd need to allow for different sizes and devices and things like that, whereas Apple was just such an easier way for me to go that's the right way.
I think it's probably fair to assume that technology will catch up to that pretty soon, and you'll be able to create Android apps that are just as easy. And of course, the nice thing with the Android is, and I'm sure people are already feeling freaked out because they don't even know what these mean, but we'll get back to that. But with the Android, the Nook Color is essentially an Android tablet. And now there are some really cool apps that you can buy for your Nook Color. So as more Android apps come out and tablets, and then you have, of course, the iPad, it's going to be, as you're right, a huge market for this. And to put it in simple terms, really what we're talking about are alive books. Books that have multimedia, that can move, that can talk, but they're still at their heart books, right?
They are. At the heart, they're books, and it's all about the quality of the story. And I think that's something that's really important for children's writers to be thinking about, is that just because you go digital doesn't mean quality goes out the window, and you still have to invest, the time and money in working with an editor and working with a proofreader and an illustrator. It's about the quality of story. And you don't want all the bells and whistles to drive what the experience is for the kids. It's the story, and then the bells and whistles enhance the interactivity with the story. But it's really exciting, especially for kids who aren't necessarily keen readers. Say 1 in 5 kids struggles to learn to read. 1 in 10 are actually dyslexic. And I know this because one of my sons is severely dyslexic, and I've spent a lot of time in this space and understanding this space. And we had an article here in our major newspaper last week about how there are schools using iPads and storybook apps to help remediate reading for kids, because all of a sudden there's a different way for them to engage. And with my son, the iPad was the first time that he chose storybooks over games. So I was really excited to see that.
One of the things that we hear a lot from authors, particularly those who are kind of resistant, we're big fans of ebooks and apps, because I really think that's the way things are going. But there are a lot of people that are resistant to it, and I understand why. They love paper. They love books, and we do too. And this isn't a zero-sum game. Books aren't going to go away. This is just a new element. But one of the things that we hear a lot is, well, you can't replace the experience of a kid sitting on his mom or dad's lap, flipping the pages of a physical book with a tablet. What's your take on that? Do you think that when kids pick up Treasure Kai on a tablet, are they experiencing it the same way they would if they were reading it on paper?
They're experiencing it in a different way, and for my book was already about interactivity. It was already it's a twist on your choose your adventure story, whereas in my hard copy book, what would happen is kids would turn the page, they would open a treasure chest, find a toy, put it on the map, turn the page, do that again. On the tablet, they're tapping treasure chests to advance the story and exploring that way. But when it comes to sharing the experience with someone else, kids sit next to each other or their parents using the tablet, and they take turns tapping chests. I've got someone sent me a video of them doing it, and I've got testimonials of parents and grandparents who've written in and said, they love sitting down and experiencing this book with their kids. I love books too, and I really don't want books to go away. I just think this is another string to the bow for writers and for kids and parents, for a way to engage with their kids with reading.
From a financial standpoint, in terms of making a living as a writer, how has this worked for you as opposed to the print edition of the book?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because one of the big drivers for me to go digital was financial, because I was in a position where I was about to reprint books, and so first I'll talk about cost, and then I'll talk about revenue that comes in. So from a cost perspective, I was going to print another 5,000 hard copies of my book plus 5,000 of the new one, and I was looking at substantial upfront costs. And the thing that was frustrating, being from America but living in Australia, is with my first lot of books that I had printed, what I learned was it was much easier to sell the books in Australia where I live. But it was frustrating because I'm from America. I know the book has global appeal. I've sold it all over the world. But I knew that when I reprinted these books, I was going to be having them all delivered in Australia and focusing on the Australian market. What happens when you have an app and it goes into the App Store is all of a sudden you've got access to a global market. I've sold Treasure Pie. We've been in market now for about 6 weeks. We were in market for a short while in February, and then we had a little glitch, and so we really just launched in mid-May, so about 6 weeks. We've sold in over 30 countries, and I haven't had to manage inventory at all, which is really exciting. I don't have to worry about shipping. I don't have to worry about anything. And the other thing is the cost. The upfront costs were a lot lower, so much lower than if I purchased my book. So, you know, there are a number of different ways that you can fund this, and we can talk costs. I know you have a question about that. We'll talk costs more about that in a few minutes. But my upfront costs were much, much, much lower. So that was very exciting for me, and I can reach a global market. Now, when it comes to revenue, the price point is much lower than a book. So definitely you're not bringing in as much money from a revenue perspective. Our book is priced at $4.99 in the U.S. store, whereas my book is about, I think it's $19.99 in America. But with the App Store, Apple takes 30% of the revenue, and I get the remaining 70% of that $4.99. So yes, my revenue amount is less, but my percentage is much higher, and I can reach a global market, and I have no shipping costs, no warehousing costs, nothing, none of that. Which
and plus, it's also
far more profitable.
What you're getting there is also a good deal higher than if you were publishing traditionally and just collecting a 10 or 15% royalty too, which you probably would have to split with an illustrator. So clearly, it definitely financially makes sense for you.
Yeah, absolutely it does. And I am a self-published author, so that's where I do speak from. However, that's true. If you've got a 10% royalty, which most children's authors do, and then if you're splitting with a illustrator, it's even less, then, you know, the math gets interesting. But then also, though, apps don't sell themselves. And so I don't want to sit here and say book apps are nirvana. Book apps are the same as books. You've got to create buzz. You've got to market it. But the thing that what I have found is that it is so liberating to have a book app from a marketing perspective, because what it means is I can market using internet and online marketing and not have to worry about where I'm selling to because I've got global access. And one of the things that did hold me back, and I always thought this was silly, this whole thing of fear of success, but it's true, because I was worried with my hard copy book, what if all of a sudden, you know, I had a big order, I had to turn around and reprint more of these books because it was quite expensive to reprint the books, and also it had a long lead time. Whereas there's just so much freedom from a mindset perspective with the book apps, but you have to market them. And you do it the same way you market a book. You try to get reviews, and you can get reviews through publishing sites, but also through app sites and parenting, you know, mommy bloggers and people like that. And you can use social media. You market to your existing customer database. You know, I had a big database from my book buyers for my hard copy book. So yeah, you have to market, but it's possible, and you've got that global market to access. So really exciting. For me, I have broken even, which is great, and I'm funding my next sequel on the Treasure Pie series, and I'm also putting together a game, a book app game, actually not a book app game, a game that's based on a book as well. So we're building a whole brand experience with Treasure Con with our website as well. So I've got a huge vision of what I want to do, and that's why I called my website Digital Kids Author, because for me, I'm creating a global digital brand, and I can do it, you know, as a self-published author, working with professionals, and it's very exciting.
One of the things that really impressed me about the ebook, the Author's Guide to Book Apps, is how simple it made it seem. I mean, I'm sure it's not simple, but what I mean is that you made it accessible. That I think a lot of people watching this, particularly people who don't consider themselves technically adept, might feel, oh, that's great for her, but there's no way I can do it. And what I loved about your book is that argument is exploded very quickly. I mean, you look at this and go, yeah, I could do that, sure. Here's a list of people I should contact. Okay, I get that. And that's what I think is really the value of your book, is that it goes so far beyond theory. It listing lots of resources and saying, here's how I did this, here's how you can do this. And, you know, the reality is, I think a lot of people who once upon a time thought, well, I could never get a website up, got a website up. People thought I could never do a blog, got a blog. Now people think I could never do an app. In a year, from watching this video right now, they'll have an app. It's really not that hard, and the things you can't do, you can hire people to do for you pretty reasonably.
Well, that's right, and it's perfectly stated. And the thing is, when I started, and this was, you know, a year ago that we started looking at this, there weren't companies out there turning books into book apps, not on a big scale at all. You know, so what we did was we wound up working with an independent developer, and we actually are doing that on our second one as well, because our app is quite different in that interactivity is part of the storytelling and the way we drive the story forward. But one of the things that I've been really driving is trying to find developers who specialize in turning books into apps. And I'm so excited I found 5 new ones this week. So by the time this airs, I think we'll have at least a dozen resources listed in the ebook. And they all vary from, people who hold your hand completely to people who, where you can actually do more of the process yourself. But the bottom line is it's actually not that hard. I mean, if you have your illustrations and you have your story, you're able to get music and sound effects, or you can choose a supplier who's going to do that for you, and then they do the development. Because what happens is these developers already have a framework in place on which or from which they develop their apps, and then they can. Some of them will customize more functionality for you if you want. Some of them don't. It depends on what you want. But what I'm finding is there are shops out there who do pretty much whatever you want. You have to spend a little bit of time talking to them. And one of the things I've done is I've listed in the book a number of resources, and I'm actually going to go back to all those resources and give them a questionnaire to fill out just to help with the vetting process for people to make things even quicker and easier. Because, I wish we would have had those resources to choose from back when I first started. But it is an exciting time because, it doesn't have to, you don't have to code yourself.
So what happens, a typical way that perhaps it might happen is an author develops a story, has an idea, goes out, if they're not an illustrator, goes to Odesk or Elance or at the rest of UWI, finds an illustrator, does perhaps a work-for-hire agreement with them, buys the illustrations, then goes to one of these companies and says, okay, I want the shark to jump, I want this to happen now, and then those people make the magic happen, and then at the end of the day, this is obviously simplified, but at the end of the day, now they have an app that's theirs, they own, and they can go out and sell it. Is that a overly simple but relatively true way that it works?
That's exactly right.
So really, it's not that complex, and in fact, it's probably a lot less complex than self-publishing a print book because you have so many different factors in terms of the color and the bleed and all these things that you need to learn about. But here, you're really just taking the idea and turning it over to somebody who knows exactly how to make your vision come to life, who then just delivers the finished product.
That's right. And some of the companies that I've found will do a lot of that for you. There's even one I heard from this morning who will help you source illustrators, which is just brilliant. And then others, don't. It just depends on what your needs are. Yeah, it doesn't have to be hard, and that's what's so exciting. But you have to have quality story, and you have to know that you need to market your product. Some of the companies will do fee for service. Some of them will do revenue share for you, or they'll want a clip of the ticket because they'll need to update the app over time. And what that means is that once an app is in the App Store, it doesn't mean that it's there working perfectly forever, because if Apple introduces a new device or they upgrade the software, it can affect a current app. So you have to be prepared to make sure updates occur. And but that's what these companies do. So some of them might take a small part of the revenue that come in from the app. But that's what these other writers need to look at, is for each of the different resources or potential companies that they could work with, what is the remuneration model, how much do they do, and how many decisions can you make, how much customization can you do, etc. But it doesn't have to be difficult at all.
Right. One of the cool things also is distribution is essentially taken care of. That it's in the Apple App Store or the Android App Store or wherever it is. So right now, for example, anybody watching this who says, I'd like that Treasure Kai app, could fire up their iPad or their iPod, go to the App Store, and it would be there for them. They could search and they could find it right there. They don't have to search around at all for it.
That's right. That's right. They just download it and then play with it straight away. And,
so
that is great because it's immediate gratification.
So really then, as an author, after it's created, you don't have to worry about distribution. You simply leap over that step and go right into the marketing of it and getting the word out. So that saves a tremendous amount of effort. I think that's really one of the great things about apps, how simple it is, because there's one mega store that everybody goes to, and it's a click away on every iPod and iPad and every Droid tablet.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're wrapping up here, but take just a minute or two to talk about some of the things that you've done in terms of marketing that you think have been most successful.
I think the thing that I've done that's been most successful from a marketing perspective is the first thing I did was while my app was in development, I put together a whole list of review sites. So the people like iPhone Mom or Digital Storytime, people like that who were relevant, so I could go and present my app and get credible reviews that are outside of, what's the word? There's a word for it. You can edit this part.
No, I'm going to leave it in.
What's it called when it's not biased? Unbiased reviews.
Okay.
You can get unbiased reviews, true in-market reviews. And so I did that first of all. And then another thing that I've done is I joined an organization called Moms with Apps, which is a terrific organization for people who develop family-friendly apps.
And what's the URL? What's the address for that?
It's www.momswithapps.com.
Okay.
And they've got a terrific forum where people share information and ideas, but they also have some marketing tools that you can use. There's something called App Friday, where you can promote your app to their database. You have to discount it or offer it for sale. And that was a great driver of downloads for us. I've done a little bit of price testing, like doing sales, and that's been good. I've done a press release, and that's been helpful as well. So far, the efforts that I've made have been around that area. I've also used social media, which has been terrific for me. And then I've been promoting to my own database as well. So I had a list of book buyers, and now people are keen to know about the app. So those are the main things I've done, but I'm actually working on a promotion idea, which is absolutely huge, and I'm so excited about, and it's going to have viral potential. So when that's ready, I'll let you know, and we can share that with people, because, just like with books, book apps need awareness and buzz. Those are the two important things. And so it's one thing, to get good reviews and to have easy distribution, but if it's just sitting on the shelf, it's sitting on the shelf. If people need to know about it, to buy it. So that's where I've started, but I'm just building on my marketing. I'm 6 weeks into it, so I'm not, that far into it, but I have already paid back the money that I put into the app, so that's exciting.
And you still have time to write. It hasn't taken up your entire life.
I still have time to write. Yes, in fact, we're about to start developing the second book app soon, and as soon as that's going, then I'm going to finish off the third Treasure Pie book and get that illustration process started.
Great.
So it's
and I know you have a free report at your website, and we'll have the link below me. Free report and a special price for Write4Kids TV viewers to go there and pick up the book. It's very inexpensive. It's the author's guide to book apps. And really, I was thinking all along, we should probably write something like that. And then I saw your book, and I said, oh, thank God I don't have to write it, because there's somebody who just did it and did it better than I possibly could have. So thank you for that. It's a wonderful book, and I think it'll make the path toward becoming an e-author so much easier for a lot of people. And I think that's just so important, because that's clearly the way the market's going. So I think you've done just a great service for folks.
Oh, thanks, John. What it was I mentioned to you that I was in market for a short little time, and then we were out for a while. What happened was we had a bug when the new Apple II came out, and our developer wasn't able to fix it straight away, and so I wound up being out of market 9 weeks. And that was when I started getting all these phone calls from people saying, how did you do it? Will you speak at our event? Will you write articles for us? I found articles barely scratched the surface of what people needed to know, and I realized that I started sitting down to write this ebook. I realized, that there was actually a lot to know, but it was quite straightforward, and that's why I wrote the book. Otherwise, I would have been too busy to write this book. So there was a real gift in the little problem that I had with the bug, as it turned out, to be able to write that book to help others. And I'm very passionate about being very open with people about the results we're getting and that sort of thing. Because I think it is a very exciting opportunity for authors, but I don't want to paint it as nirvana either. And one of the things I do want to mention as well with the ebook is that I do send out free updates to people who buy the ebook, because I'm always adding new resources and learning new things, and as I do that, I send it out. And I have a price very inexpensively, and the reason for that is that when you're a writer and you want to get your words out, there's so many people who just will come in and they'll paint this wonderful picture for you, and they'll charge you lots of money, and I just didn't want to do that. I just wanted people to have a an inexpensive way to have a quick look about whether or not this opportunity is right for them. And that's what it's about.
Well, I'm glad you did.
And I've got my blog as well.
And we'll definitely make sure there's a link to it here. And we're glad you wrote the book. And everybody go check that out. And also, if you have an iPad or an iPod, check out Treasure Kai, the app, and you can see for yourself the work that Karen's done. So thank you, Karen. Very first guest. You will go down in history as number one.
Oh, thanks, John. I really appreciate the time. It's good fun chatting.
Great. Thanks.